You ever look at those top IB students, the ones who seem totally calm, collected, but still manage to pull off amazing scores, and just wonder, how do they do it? Well, I can tell you it's not about pulling more all-nighters. The real secret isn't just studying more, it's about having a system. And today, we are going to break down that exact weekly system, piece by piece.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the two basic mindsets every student has. Then we'll get into why cramming is just a recipe for failure. After that, we'll dive into the solution, a simple 5-part weekly system. We'll show you how to build a game plan around it. And finally, look at why this pays off so big in the long run.
Okay, first things first. There are really only two ways students approach the IB. And as I go through these, I want you to be honest with yourself and ask, which one of these sounds a little, too much like me?
So on one side, you've got the crisis mode student. You know the vibe? Always stressed, always reacting to the next deadline, constantly feeling behind, and basically powered by last-minute cram sessions. And on the other side, you've got the systematic student. They're calm, they're proactive, and they're always ahead of the game. Now here's the thing. They aren't necessarily smarter. They just have a way better system. It's not about intelligence, it's all about the framework. So, let's talk about why that crisis mode approach just doesn't work. Relying on cramming feels like you're doing what you have to do to survive, right? But it's a trap. It actually locks you into this vicious cycle that makes real, deep learning pretty much impossible.
So the first huge problem is that your brain just doesn't hold on to the information. It's like pouring water into a leaky bucket. Sure, you might cram enough to pass that test on Tuesday, but I guarantee you, by Friday, it's gone. And when final exams roll around, you're basically starting from zero, trying to relearn everything.
And problem number 2 is the sheer emotional toll it takes. When you live in crisis mode, you're always carrying around this heavy weight of stress. There's always another test you aren't ready for, another assignment that's due. It is mentally and, honestly, physically exhausting.
But here it is, the absolute deal breaker for the IB. Cramming only ever lets you memorize surface-level facts. You never get the time to build a deep understanding of the material. You know, the analysis, the connections, the application that the exams are actually testing you on. You literally cannot cram your way to real knowledge. It just doesn't work that way.
So how do you break out of that cycle? Well, you don't. You replace it. You just swap the chaos and the stress for a simple, proactive framework. This is that 5-part weekly system that top students use to pretty much always stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, here they are, the 5 key parts of the system. We've got Sunday planning, daily active recall, the 48-hour review, deep work sessions, and a Friday reflection. Now, each one of these is pretty simple on its own, but when you put them together, that's when it gets really powerful. So let's break down what each one actually is.
Everything starts on Sunday. You set aside 30 minutes, non-negotiable, for a planning session. You look at your calendar, you map out all your deadlines, and you block out specific times to study. And I don't mean just writing study biology. I mean writing review chapter 5 flashcards for biology. That tiny bit of planning up front saves you so much mental energy during the week because you never have to ask, what should I be working on right now?
All right, next up, active recall. And the science on this is crystal clear. It is about 3 times more effective for long-term memory than just passively rereading your notes. Rereading feels like you're doing something, but it's not very effective. Active recall is all about forcing your brain to pull information out. Things like flashcards, practice questions, or my personal favorite, the blank page method. You just grab a blank page and try to write down everything you can remember about a topic. It's tough for sure, but that's what actually builds strong memories.
Now let's talk about forgetting things. Our brains are actually designed to forget. In fact, you're going to forget about 70% of anything new you learn within a single week if you don't look at it again. So the 48-hour review is your secret weapon. All you have to do is spend 10, maybe 15 minutes reviewing your notes from class within 2 days. That simple little act sends a signal to your brain that says, hey, this stuff is important. Keep it around. It's a tiny habit, but the impact on your memory is huge.
Part 4 is all about deep work. This means you schedule 2 2-hour blocks every week where it's just you and the material. No distractions. Your phone is off in another room, no social media. You're just focused on one thing, usually your hardest stuff, like working through past papers. This is so incredibly powerful because 2 hours of true, focused work is worth more than 10 hours of distracted, multitasking studying. And finally, at the end of the week, you do a quick 15-minute Friday reflection. Look, This isn't about feeling bad about what you didn't do. It's a strategic check-in. It's like doing maintenance on your system. By asking yourself these simple questions, you spot the small problems before they have a chance to turn into big, overwhelming ones right before exams.
Okay, so we've got the 5 pieces of the puzzle. But what does this actually look like day to day? Let's try and put this all together into a real-world weekly game plan. Here's just a sample of how you could structure your week without it completely taking over your life. You could do a quick active recall session in the morning. After school, you tackle homework and your 48-hour reviews. Then on the weekend, you've got your 2 deep work sessions. But here's the key takeaway. We're talking about maybe 10 to 12 hours of focused study a week. That's probably less time than you're already spending trying to study, but now every single hour has a purpose.
But you have 6 subjects, so where do you spend the time? You can't give them all equal attention. The best way to think about it is like a budget. You give the biggest slice of your time, about 60%, to your most demanding HL subjects. Then, about 25% goes to your trickiest SL subjects. And that last 15%? That's just for keeping up with your stronger SL subjects. It's all about putting your energy where it's going to make the biggest difference.
So what happens when you do this, not just for 1 week, but for months? What's the real payoff? Well, this is where the magic happens. This is all about the incredible power of consistency.
And honestly, this might be the most important idea of all. The systematic student and the crisis mode student might actually study for the exact same number of hours. The difference isn't the time you put in, it's what you get out. One person is building this deep, solid foundation of knowledge. The other is just stuck on a hamster wheel of panic and forgetting. Same hours, but completely, dramatically different results.
And hey, if you're watching this and thinking, it's too late for me, exams are too close, stop right there. Starting this system, even just 3 months out, is an absolute game changer. That still gives you 12 planning sessions, 90 days of active recall practice, and 24 deep work sessions. It is never, ever too late to trade stress for a system.
So that's the system. Its power isn't in some complicated theory. It's in a simple, repeatable framework you can start using today. You don't even have to do all 5 parts at once. Just start somewhere. Which brings me to my final question for you. What's the one single step from this system that you are going to try this week?